Well, what is up, all of our liberty-loving friends? This is another fantastic episode of Good Morning Liberty. My name is Nate Thurston. I am by myself today. Once again, Charlie has been sick all week, and we're just trying to stay separated so I don't get sick right into the holidays. I am hanging out, however, with the Fed Haters Club, who joined via joingml.com. For as little as $7 a month, you can hang out with me, and I'll read your comments, and you really can help direct the show throughout the show. It's a little bit more difficult when it's only me to be like talking and reading stuff and reading comments, but I'll try to do my best. So we got the speech last night. I was telling the live group beforehand in the pre-show, I typically don't speculate about things. Leaves a lot of opportunity for being wrong about stuff. I did, however, decide that yesterday, like everyone, I did decide that yesterday was so obvious what it was going to be about that it was worth speculating that Trump would be announcing some kind of declaration of war. Well, not a real one, but you know what I mean. Some kind of war with Venezuela, or at least my speculation was that he was going to put a time clock on it, because he does like to give people, put people on a clock, because he really likes negotiating. And so he was going to announce, say, a 24-hour clock, and that would expire with either Maduro stepping down or us starting some type of land campaign against Venezuela. And that it turned out to be wildly inaccurate. But I'm in good company. There were plenty of people who were wrong about this. It just felt so obvious, you know. We got the supposed Epstein files released tomorrow, so that was a portion of it. We had the announcement of the partial blockade, the blockade of sanctioned oil around Venezuela. We had the announcement of classifying fentanyl as a WMD. We've got the continued strikes on the alleged drug boats, and so it just felt sort of perfect that that's what the announcement was going to be last night, and basically everyone agreed with me, including everyone in the news. Like, that's just what everyone thought. And what actually happened was, perhaps through just once again showcasing Trump's genius when it comes to the media, was to make it seem obvious that that's what this was going to be about. And all the networks are carrying this special announcement from the president. They kind of have to. And so all the networks are doing this. They're all lined up, ready to talk about it. Everyone's watching. I don't know the numbers, but multiple millions of people were watching the speech last night, waiting to hear why we were going to be going into Venezuela, or striking Venezuela and starting this war. And what you got was an 18-minute speech about how great a job Trump has done over the last 11 months. And no matter what I'm about to say of the actual content of the speech, can we just kind of hand it to Trump that if that literally was the plan the entire time, it's sort of hilarious, sort of genius, a little gross if you don't like politics all that much, but as far as marketing goes and media manipulation goes, I mean, what do you gotta give him a hand on that one. That was good. Now, when it comes to the speech itself, we're going to go through that, because I was telling everyone beforehand, just tons of claims made, some true, some false. I would put it somewhere around 50-50 on true and false claims, maybe a little bit more false, or a little bit more not blatantly false, but speculative claims made. And so we're going to talk about it. There is this thing, like Tucker Carlson was on Judge Napolitano's show yesterday. I just wanted to point this out, some of the reactions to this. He was on Judge Napolitano's show yesterday, and I was watching that, and he made the claim that he had sources in Congress that they had been told that Trump was going to go to war with Venezuela, and that he would be announcing that in his speech last night. And so he made the claim on Judge Knapp's show that that's potentially what it was. He said, here's what I know so far. Members of Congress were briefed yesterday that a war is coming, and that it will be announced in the address to the nation tonight at 9 o'clock by the president. Who knows, by the way, if that will actually happen? I don't know, and I never want to overstate what I know, which is pretty limited in general. So we did, it's a little disclaimer on there. I don't actually know. What's crazy is all the response to him and many others being wrong on this, as if I don't know what the point of saying, yeah, my sources told me this was going to be about what it's going to be about, and lying about that. But first off, like, Tucker Carlson doesn't need to go on Judging Freedom with Judge Andrew Napolitano, someone that, like, most people in the mainstream don't really know that much about or watch. He does have a large audience, but it's like not super mainstream show. Tucker Carlson doesn't need to go on someone else's show and make this announcement that this is what Trump is going to be talking about tonight, according to his sources. There's no benefit to that. He could generate clips anytime he wants. That's fine. There's no reason for him to go out and lie about that. And so I believe him that there's some kind of source that told him this. And maybe that was the plan. Maybe they leaked this to people intentionally to get this word out and get more people to watch this speech. I think that is a potential for what happened. There are other potentials, like maybe they were going to do it and they decided not to. I threw out one speculation, which would require something big in the news to happen with Maduro, like today, basically. Like maybe they had 2 different speeches and they sent them to Maduro. They said, hey, we can give this speech about why we're about to obliterate your country and get back our oil that you selfishly placed your country on top of. Or we can give this speech about how awesome the Trump administration is doing on everything. It's up to you. You going to step down or not? What are we going to do? Ball's in your court. Which speech do you want me to give tonight? So that would require some kind of news regarding Venezuela to come out, because clearly we know which speech we got, which would mean there was some kind of concession made, which would mean we would need that news. So I just wanted to address it's, I think, well within the realm of possibility for people to speculate that that's what this was about. Yesterday ended up not being what it was about. And by the way, it doesn't mean that we're not doing war with Venezuela. Now I feel the feeling kind of changed last night when you found out it was not going to be this de facto declaration of war. It's like, see, Trump's not doing war with Venezuela. Like, no, he's still doing the stuff that we've been talking about. We're still blowing up a bunch of their boats that are leaving their shores, seizing an oil tanker here and there, doing a blockade of sanctioned oil that we've just decided is sanctioned. And so we're going to do a blockade of their country. Like, we're still doing war type things, acts of war, things that we would clearly consider acts of war if someone were doing it to us. But since they're not like directly fighting back, we're just saying, well, we're not doing a war. Like, we're just attacking it. They're not hitting us back. So that's not technically a war. Okay. Now we're going to get into this speech. And I know that we have some people that are fans of Trump that listen to this show, even someone in the group with us right now. And just want to make the point, as you guys know, I voted for Trump in 2024. Have not been super happy so far, but that's the decision I made, and I stand by that decision. I did it with the information I had at the time. It's important to critique people, even if they're people that you agree with on a lot of things, even if they're people that you support, even if they're people that you want to do well, people that you voted for, people on your side of the aisle. Like, that's important, because I want him to do well. But really, like, I don't really care how he does. Above all, I want these things that he's talking about to actually be fixed. And we should want real change to happen, not just political rhetoric when it comes to talking about these changes happening or talking about these things being fixed. What's more important than being able to give a statistic to someone that makes people feel good is that the underlying thing was actually fixed. That's what we need in the real world. And so while we can look at this speech and say, yeah, take that, Democrats, or whatever, I also care about whether or not those things are true. And if they're not true, then I'm unhappy about that, because those are the things that I care about. And more so than caring about Trump winning or boasting about how much winning is going on. It should be more important that you care more about the things and whether or not they're actually getting fixed. And this needs to be demanded by Republicans, because Trump listens to people, like not all the time, but he pays attention to what people are saying. And Republicans are the only people he's going to listen to. And so my plea to Republicans is that you hold his feet to the fire like you would hold anyone else's feet to the fire. And if something is said that is not true, and it's something that you actually want to be true, but it's not because they're not doing the things to make it true, we need to bring that up, because you should actually want those things to be fixed. And by the way, we would do this if Biden or Kamala had interrupted your regularly scheduled programming for 20 minutes last night and given a speech with if it was a bunch of things that we disagree with and gave a speech, we would want to critique that. Or if they lied or got incorrect many of the things they said, we would want to bring those facts to the people, and you shouldn't let who the person is deter you from doing that. And what I really hear from this is that we know that you can't lie to people about their economic conditions. Biden tried that. It did not work. Presidents do that. This is not inherently a Biden thing. It was kind of more pronounced for the Biden administration because inflation got so bad. Real wages were down, things like that. It felt like a bigger deal when they were doing it because the facts were so clearly obvious right in front of your face. And they tried to lie to people about how the economy was, and you just can't do it. You cannot tell someone that they are doing better than they are doing. You feel it every time you go to the grocery store. You get gas, you go shopping for Christmas, you pay your mortgage, your insurance, your electricity bill. You just can't lie to people about it. And I think Trump is sort of figuring that out. He did start off by calling this a Democrat hoax a few weeks ago, and now it's shifted more to there is an affordability problem, and it's 100% entirely the Democrats' fault, and we're working on fixing it. We've made great progress so far, and there's still more room for this to get a lot better. And that's at least a shift towards the right direction. Of course, you want people to take responsibility for anything that they are also doing to contribute to the problem. But hey, nobody's perfect. Let's go through some of this speech. I think I'm going to make it about 5 seconds into it. Let's see. Hold on a sec. Let me check and see if Charlie messed up our sound settings. Yeah, I think that was Charlie's fault. Okay, here we go.
America, 11 months ago, I inherited a mess, and I'm fixing it. When I took office, inflation was the worst in 48 years, and some would say in the history of our country, which caused prices to be higher than ever before, making life unaffordable for millions and millions of Americans.
How far did I go? 22 seconds. Better than I thought. Inflation was really high under the Biden administration. We all know that. What a lot of people really care about is the fact that while Biden was president, the cumulative inflation from the time he came into office to the time he exited, the CPI, official CPI, and we know really how fake that number is, official CPI rose a little over 21% while he was president. And for most of that time, wages were not keeping pace. The real wages were going down. They did eventually catch up to that number, but it was too late. Like, I think that by Biden's last month in office or something, the real wages finally caught up to inflation. But then people had experienced 4 years of prices going up faster than their wages were going up. And so that was really bad. It was clearly really bad. Just one little factual error here. And it might not seem important. I find it important. When he took office, it's not as if he took office at the time that inflation was 9.1%, which was the high it hit under the Biden administration. That happened in 2022. When he took office, just look at a chart right here. When he took office, inflation was at 2.8%. It's very different. It's a very different number. Inflation was at 2.8. And I think the number came out today that it's at 2.7. Pretty sure. It has dropped down close to 2, went back up to 3, and now it's down at 2.7. It's still above what the target rate of inflation is. But yeah, while Biden was in office, we had this big jump up to 9.1%. A lot of factors in that. A whole lot of money printing happening. Yes, the Russia-Ukraine thing had something to do with it as well. It affected a lot of prices when this happened. And Trump's inflation numbers were overall pretty good as far as prices increasing when they don't have to goes over the administration. They stuck around 2. I think the average was actually like 1.8 over his first term. And then we see it jump up to a high of 9.1. That's pretty bad. As far as the highest inflation in 48 years, that's not entirely accurate. The last highest inflation rate was 14.8%, and that was in beginning of 1981 or 1980, I think, somewhere right in there. So that's not quite the fact. Technically, it's not technically the fact, but he's kind of right about it, even if people don't know why he's right about it, because we changed the way that we calculate our inflation. They found a way to make it look less than what it actually is. At the very least, what they should go back and do is recalculate the old inflation numbers under the same rules that we have right now, so we could get an accurate comparison for what the inflation rates have been. But what they actually did was they went back and they changed the way that home prices go into it. They changed the way that they determine what goods people are buying, deciding that they'll buy off-brand things or substitutions for other things and counting that as the same basket of goods. So when something's going up too much, they'll make the assumption if you want a cookies, instead you're going to get muffins. And since muffins didn't go up as much, they'll ignore the cookie inflation and they'll just count the muffin inflation. So things like that. So that's, he's probably accurate that even though that 9.1 doesn't look as high as the 14.8, the 9.1, according to Shadow Stats, which is a website you should check out, was actually 18 to 20, I think, at that time. So, yeah. All right, just a little point there on the inflation. Here we go.
This happened during a Democrat administration, and it's when we first began hearing the word affordability. Our border was open, and because of this, our country was being invaded by an army of 25 million people, many who came from prisons and jails, mental institutions, and insane asylums. They were drug dealers, gang members, and even 11,888 murderers, more than 50% of whom killed more than one person. This is what the Biden administration allowed to happen to our country, and it can never be allowed to happen again.
So most of those things were true in there. The one disputed number is the 25 million, but we don't actually know what the number is. They'll talk about there's known gotaways, there's apprehensions, there's unknown gotaways, and kind of by definition, an unknown number is an unknown number, and so you don't really know about that. So like official stats will say 10 million ish, but he's basically settled around 25 million, whatever. The facts about the murderers and all that was all true. The only little disclaimer on that is that those are not specifically people that came in under Biden. Those are just a total amount of people that Border Patrol or ICE knew about, and they came in at any times. So, he has definitely done a good job with the border, as long as that's something you agree with and care about. As far as the stated goal of shutting down the border and shutting down illegal crossings, like, that is accurate. That's essentially, I think they've had no releases or whatever over the last 6 or 7 months now, something like that. And so that's true. I do have a question about this though. I have a question about this though. They've done such a good job shutting down the border, and they know that no illegals are coming into the country. I don't know if he said that specifically yet. It's just weird that the drugs are still coming in apparently from the other countries. And I guess a lot of them come across the border and there's Americans bringing them back in, or bringing them in across the border. I do wonder, like, are any people coming on boats from the ocean? Because apparently you can come on a boat from the ocean and storm the beaches and unload all of these drugs, and no one will know about it. But you couldn't also storm the beaches with a boat full of people and no one would know about it? I don't know. I guess I don't know all about the mechanics of how that works. I just feel like if it's closed down, it's closed down. And maybe those boats aren't, in fact, coming to America. So, all right, let's go further into this. By this time, I was still expecting an announcement about Venezuela, by the way. He's talking about the murders and the insane asylums and all these people flooding into the country. I was like, all right, he's going to roll this in. He's going to build the case for why we must go to war. And it's just, it's not what happened.
We had men playing in women's sports, transgender for everybody, crime at record levels with law enforcement and words.
Men playing in women's sports. They did sign an executive order about that. That's not so, and a lot of people did follow through with that. There are some pending court cases, and we'll have to see how that's going to shake out. I don't want men deciding to say that they're women and playing against women. You know, I'm not exactly sure where the federal government's job comes in at that point, but you know, I get it. I'm super against that. It's really dumb. Transgender for everybody. I wish he would say transgender for all. Like, make fun of the Medicare for all saying and just call it transgender for all. But it bothers me every time he does this. They did just pass they passed a law. The House passed a law yesterday, I think. I think it was Marjorie Taylor Greene's law, something about protecting children's innocence or something like that. It's not been passed by the Senate or anything. And then I did see there was a new executive order, I believe today, about not providing either, I think, Medicaid or Medicare funding to hospitals that perform surgeries on minors. And those are things I haven't directly looked into, but he's definitely been addressing those things for sure. As far as crimes being at record highs, that's not accurate. Actually, the highest crime numbers were during 2020 while Trump was still in office. But you guys know that had most to do with like the BLM riots and stuff like that. And then there's big decreases. The Biden administration would say, look how much crime has decreased. And they were pulling from, like, obviously people were rioting and destroying property and assaulting people by the thousands during the Summer of Love. And so the crime stats are all over the place. We did not just come out of like historically high crime rates. So unless you believe that the crime stats are just totally made up and the points don't matter, which could be the case.
Such as that, just absolutely forbidden. We had the worst trade deals ever made, and our country was laughed at from all over the world. But they're not laughing anymore. Over the past 11 months, we have brought more positive change to Washington than any administration in American history. I was elected in a landslide, winning the popular vote. And
I would say one of the big positive changes is that they fired a lot of people who work for the government. Other than that, that's good. We'll go through the landslide victory real quick.
All 7 swing states and everything else with a mandate to take on a sick and corrupt system that really just took the wealth from people and crushed the dreams of the American people. For the last 4 years, the United States was ruled by politicians who fought only for insiders, illegal aliens, career criminals, corporate lobbyists, prisoners, terrorists, and above all, foreign nations, which took advantage of us at levels never seen before. They flooded your cities.
I'm surprised he mentioned the thing about fighting for foreign nations, honestly. I'll leave some of my comments about that for tomorrow's episode of Dumb Bleep of the Week, where we have a lot of really great clips to show everyone.
Towns with illegal aliens. They decimated your hard-earned savings. They indoctrinated your children with hate for America. They caused war. They caused mayhem. They caused a horrible situation all over the globe. But now You have a president who fights for the law-abiding, hardworking people of our country, the ones who make this nation run, who make this nation work. And after just 1 year, we have achieved more than anyone could have imagined. Starting on day one, I took immediate action to stop the invasion of our southern border. For the past 7 months, 0 illegal aliens have been allowed into our country, a feat which everyone said was absolutely impossible. Do you remember when Joe Biden said that he needed Congress to pass legislation to help close the border? He was always blaming Congress and everyone else. As it turned out, we didn't need legislation. We just needed a new president.
Oh, that's a good and valid point. They kept saying that they needed Congress to pass a new law, and while literally just not enforcing laws. And so that's a really great and valid point for everyone who cares a lot about the border and everything. They literally just needed to enforce laws that were on the books and go back to the, like the Remain in Mexico thing made a lot of sense. If you're going to apply for asylum and all that, you don't just wait over there while we're processing this claim instead of just waiting here, and then you never show back up when we decide whether or not you can stay here. I mean, makes sense.
We're deporting criminals, restoring safety to our most dangerous cities. Just take a look at Washington, D.C. It's at levels of safety that we've never seen before. And they decimated the bloodthirsty foreign drug cartels. We did that all by ourselves with our people, and we're so proud of it because they were poisoning and destroying our population. Drugs brought in by ocean and by sea are now down 94%. We have broken the grip of sinister woke radicals in our schools, and control over those schools is back now in the hands of our great and loving states where education belongs.
So as we're talking about the Department of Education, I support his actions that he took, that he was able to take with the Department of Education. Although I don't know, shifting some of that over to other departments, I guess I technically would rather just have the whole thing gone for sure. But yeah, we got an executive order in the Department of Education, and they're presumably doing way less than they used to, and that's good. That's good, as long as you don't get a new person in office who thinks that we should have a Department of Education, and then they just rescind that executive order. There's already been congressional authorization for a Department of Education, so just poof, all of a sudden we just have a Department of Education again. And by the way, they'll need to spend more money to catch back up with all the losses that occurred during that time that they weren't there. And so while what Trump did with the Department of Education is a great step, clearly a great step in the right direction, what I would love Trump to do is tell Congress, you guys know when he wants to push Congress to do something, he'll do it. We've seen his wrath against Congress when he wants to do this. Why isn't he going off on Congress about abolishing the Department of Education entirely? I think that would be nice. Then they'd have to, when someone else comes into office and they decide they want a Department of Education, they'd have to go to Congress for that thing because this thing's gone. So I would love to hear him push for doing that instead of just trying to do it through the executive branch, where it could just pop right back up if someone else gets into office that we don't agree with.
After rebuilding the United States military in my first term, and with the addition we are adding right now, we have the most powerful military anywhere in the world, and it's not even close.
Well, I have to point out the rebuilding the military thing once again. So we had the, I guess what he's talking about, I do remember this big uproar over the sequestration that occurred under Obama, I think for a couple of years or something. And if I'm remembering correct, I'm going to get this wrong, so don't quote me on it. Don't take this and say it to someone else. Either the budget stayed the same for a period of 2 or 3 years, or it actually went down by 1% or so each year, something like that occurred. I do not remember the numbers, and I was not super politically involved at that time. And it's just wild that at that point, and I was listening a little bit to people like probably Mark Levin or Rush Limbaugh or something at that point. It was like we were just destroying the military, and Trump had to come in and rebuild it. And then Biden destroyed it again, I think, even though he gave them more money every year. And now Trump has rebuilt it, and it's now the most powerful military in the world. And just a fact check on that one, I'm pretty sure we've technically had the most powerful military in the world since like the 1950s or so. I don't know what your guys' estimate on that would be. At least as far as military spending for sure, but I would guess something like that. All right, let's keep going.
I've restored American strength, settled 8 wars in 10 months, destroyed the Iran nuclear threat, and ended the war in Gaza, bringing for the first time in 3,000 years peace to the Middle East, and secured the release of the hostages, both living and dead.
I like what Trump was able to do between Israel and Gaza. You could get more if you like threatened to totally cut them off or like broke off some of this, our greatest ally relationship that we have. But I think he generally wants to end these conflicts. I see him as someone who actually doesn't like war, even though we've spent a lot of time talking about the Venezuela thing recently. Ending the conflict, my only issue with that, I don't think he means anything by it or means it to be inaccurate, is that there's still like a dozen Palestinians getting killed every day or something like that. The Gaza conflict, even though we're at a ceasefire, the ceasefire is kind of ended with Israel can still fire when they want. And they can just say, well, this was important, and so we did it. And so that's, I just think it's kind of dangerous to be like, oh, well, it's ended and we got peace now for the first time. That it's relatively ended compared to where it was like a year ago, for sure. I will agree on that. Ending 8 wars, even the leaders of those countries have made fun of him for saying this, but I don't know all the details on their negotiations with those wars.
Here at home, we're bringing our economy back from the brink of ruin. The last administration and their allies in Congress looted our treasury for trillions of dollars, driving up prices and everything at levels never seen before. I am bringing those high prices down and
We did spend a heck of a lot of money on the CARES Act in 2020. You could say it was necessary because of COVID or whatever, but he was president during that time. That was like the biggest bill that had ever been passed in the history of any government in the entire world. So, as far as looting the treasury goes, it's a pretty bad year, pretty bad. And in fact, all the increases in spending that occurred, say we had to do it, didn't have to do it. All the increases in spending that occurred, they were like, oh, yeah, well, we can't go back to 2019. And so that kind of set us on this course that we're on right now.
Them down very fast. Let's look at the facts. Under the Biden administration, car prices rose 22% and in many states 30% or more. Gasoline rose 30 to 50%. Hotel rates rose 37%. Airfares rose 31%. Now under our leadership, they are all coming down and coming down fast. Democrat politicians also sent the cost of groceries soaring, but we are solving that too. The price of eggs is down 82% since March, and everything else is falling rapidly, and it's not done yet.
I like that he said it's not done yet because the price of groceries has not come down. He does say that that Democrats sent the price of groceries soaring rapidly or whatever. And he says the price of eggs are down 80-something%. And he says since March. So that's an important thing. He was the president in March. We know that spike occurred right after he got in office. I'm not blaming him for the spike that occurred in egg prices. But then the fact of the matter is you can't pull from the time that Biden left office to now and say that egg prices are down a bunch. You also can't do that with new car prices. You can't do that with electricity. You can barely, just a little bit, do it with gas. You can do it with airfare, which is down just a little bit, and I think hotels are down just a little bit as well. Inflation has slowed, but inflation still means that prices are going up, except for in the things that I just mentioned.
But boy, are we making progress. Nobody can believe what's going on. After years of record-setting falling incomes, our policies are boosting take-home pay at a historic pace. Under Biden, real wages plummeted by $3,000. Under Trump, the typical factory worker has seen a wage increase of $1,300. For construction workers, it's $1,800. For miners, we're bringing back clean, beautiful coal. It's $3,300. And for the first time in years, wages are rising much faster than inflation. Remember that. The wages, just look at it. Wages are going up much faster than inflation.
So luckily, a new report on this just came out today. And that ended up saying that the real wages, I think, are up 1.4%. Since I think the number is 1.4% right now since Trump came into office. I mean, we had these issues while Biden was in office. I do have a chart pulled up right now showing, now this is median weekly real earnings. So it's taking inflation into account. This hadn't been updated with the numbers that came out this morning yet. So it's showing since Trump got into office, those weekly real earnings median being up 0.8% above inflation. And what actually ended up happening, what I was kind of alluding to earlier, was when Biden came into office, there was a big decline in the real wages. You know, we know this, by as much as almost 4% relative to inflation. And people lived through that for 3 or 4 years of prices climbing more than their wages were. And so that made everyone very upset about the economy. And that's a lot of the way we feel right now. You know, I've said this a few times now. People are not upset that prices are, that inflation's at 2.7% right now. Like, that's high, but it's, you know, whatever, manageable. It's not a total crisis immediately right now. People are feeling this because CPI is up 25% since Trump left office. And so that's what they feel right now. And, you know, so Trump sort of is coming in at a bad time, trying to help people feel better about this, while you're trying to turn around the Titanic. And so that's where a lot of people are feeling bad. And you get announcements like tariffs and, you know, raising prices of different items and all of that. Let's see. It ended up being real wages, by the way, 0%. They eventually caught up with inflation while Biden was in office, but it was way too late for that. And they went up 3% during Trump's first term. I kind of took out the COVID spike right here because the statistics are all screwed up from people getting these enhanced unemployment benefits and STEMI checks that counted as wages and stuff like that. And so their wages just spiked all of a sudden, and that's just because the government took money from their children and gave it to them right now. So I'm sure they're very sorry about that. All right, let's go back to this.
How big is that? Very importantly, there are more people working today than at any time in American history, and 100% of all jobs created since I took office have been in the private sector.
All right, that is true. Both of those things are true. There are more people working than at any time in history. That's one where I get a little bit annoyed. They're just saying there are more people working. Well, there's also more people than at any time in history. So that's, you know, I get it. Maybe I'm being a libertarian autist right now, but actually some of these numbers are important. Labor force participation rate has not gotten back to the pre-COVID levels. So which we were at, you know, while Trump is in office, it's still below that. There's a giant decline for COVID, and it has not gotten back over that. So that's one thing. Or the employment to population ratio is right now not up to the 2019 high, but it's over the rate we were at in the 2010s after the financial crisis. So that's a win, I guess. All right, let's keep going here. We're halfway through.
That 100% of all jobs have been in the private sector rather than government, which is the only way to make a country powerful and great.
All right, sorry to cut in again. That is true, and that's a good thing. The growth has been in the private sector. And when you look at the jobs numbers, for the most part, the declines have been the fact that so many people who work for the government lost their jobs. That's awesome. That's great. In fact, I don't think we should even count people who work for the government in the jobs numbers. Why do we count them? They're only working off of money that's stolen from the paychecks of the other people that are in the workforce. I mean, and they're not doing things that are productive. Or at least a very small amount of those people are doing things that are productive. In the private sector, you're doing something productive or you don't have a job. In the government sector, you're lucky if you're doing something productive, but you're probably not, because if it was productive, then the private market would just be doing it. So it's, why do we even count those people in the numbers? Yeah, there you go. Those should, like Bundy said, that should count as welfare statistics. Yeah, that's a much better way of counting it. But a lot of the losses, or the reason the jobs numbers have been lower, have been because of all the government workers losing their jobs, and I'm totally happy with that. 100% of the new jobs created have been in the private sector. 100% of the new jobs created have been American-born people, whereas actually in Biden, there was a large percentage of them were foreign-born. Good thing, bad thing, I don't know. That's kind of a weird stat when you think about it. Here we go.
Already, I've secured a record-breaking $18 trillion of investment into the United States, which means jobs, wage increases, growth, factory openings, and far greater national security. Much of this success has been accomplished by tariffs.
All right, we're going about 15 seconds at a time right now. We're making good pace. Oh, wait, no, we're not. I'll let it play longer next time. $18 trillion in investments. This is a weird one. And there have been people that have made promises to make investments into the United States. Not going to deny that. The White House itself, as of December 10th or 11th, so a week ago, has the number at like 9.5 trillion. And then I believe it's Bloomberg has went through those numbers and said, well, some of these things overlap or getting double counted. The number's actually like 7. But it's gone anywhere from 3 trillion. He said $1 trillion like on the first day in office. And then he said, well, it's going to be 10 trillion by the end of the year. A few months ago, he was saying it was like 22 trillion. He was like, oh, no, wait, that's our GDP. And then there's just been, the GDP is higher than that, but you get it. Now it's kind of settled around 18 trillion. And that number's not true. The only way you could get the 18 trillion is if you were somehow counting, like, if all of those investments happened fully as promised right now, and then you took into account, say, increased economic activity that took place around those potential investments that created jobs, and then kind of extrapolated that out over a period of like 50 years, and then you would get to 18 trillion. So it just depends on how you want to count that. The problem with these numbers is that they're promises to make investments, and those could just be promises to make Trump happy or to help with the trade deals. And there's no for sure thing that they're ever going to happen. I hope they happen. I think it'd be great. Sure, that'd be good. That would be great. I support those investments happening, as long as they're not other foreign nations trying to buy power and control the U.S. But the problem is they could just go through permitting and planning and structural design and all these things for the remainder of Trump's 3 years in office. And then, see ya.
My favorite word, tariffs, which for many decades have been used successfully by other countries against us, but not anymore. Companies know that if they build in America, there are no tariffs, and that's why they're coming home to the USA in record numbers. They're building factories and plants at levels we haven't seen. AI, automobiles. We're doing what nobody thought was even possible, not even remotely possible. There has never, frankly, been anything like it. 1 year ago, our country was dead. We were absolutely dead. Our country was ready to fail, totally failed. Now, we're the hottest country anywhere in the world. And that's said by every single leader that I've spoken to over the last 5 months. Next year, you will also see the results of the largest tax cut.
There are a lot of plants being worked on right now. Auto plants, a lot of investment going into AI, data centers. People are getting kind of upset with that. And I get it in some cases. Like, what is the benefit to my area? It seems like there's only negatives to my area. People are going to get paid to build the place, sure. And then there's going to be like no one working there. And it's just going to take up a lot of electricity and water and all of that. And so it's going to increase the GDP of my area. Cool. I guess we're going to rake in tax revenue, potentially some property tax revenue or whatever other tax revenue we're going to get from it. So that could be good if you're looking at the economics of your area. When it comes to the auto stuff, the weird part, I was looking it up. I was like, I don't know how many auto plants are going up right now. There actually are a lot related to the auto industry going up. Most of them are EV battery factories that are using money from the Inflation Reduction Act. And so those have been in the works for a bit. There might be a couple of new things, but there is a whole lot of battery manufacturing plants. We're expected to double our battery manufacturing in the next couple of years. And those are all things that are being subsidized by Biden still, or by the U.S. government. So anyhow,
that's in American history that were really accomplished through our great, big, beautiful bill, perhaps the most sweeping legislation ever passed in Congress. We wrapped 12 different bills up into one beautiful bill. That includes no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security for our great seniors. Under these cuts, many families will be saving between $11,000 and $20,000 a year, and next spring is projected to be the largest tax refund season of all time. Because of tariffs, along with the just passed One Big Beautiful Bill, tonight I am also proud to announce that more than 1,450,000, think of this, 1,450,000 military service members will receive a special, we call Warrior Dividend before Christmas, a Warrior Dividend. In honor of our nation's founding in 1776, we are sending every soldier $1,776. In addition, I'm doing what no politician of either party has ever done.
So I'm not going to listen. I don't want any government spending. I'm not going to get mad about bonuses for the military. The fact is, when it comes to the amount of money we spend on our military, way too small a portion of it is for the people who actually serve in the military, and the rather extremely large and disgusting portion of it goes to people who make all the weapons and all the equipment that they use, which, that takes money and it takes time to do. But I'm not going to get mad about the bonuses. They're probably getting paid. I'm assuming right now they're saying it's out of tariffs, but they can't exactly do that. The way they did this with how they're going to do the farm payouts is they're taking it out of the existing coffers. So in this case, say for like the Department of Defense or Department of War or whatever, and then they're going to try to replace that later. So that's, I'm not going to get mad about that. You talked about the tax cuts. Disclaimer, or like just point of order here. The main thing with the Big Beautiful Bill was that they just kept the tax cuts that were in the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. And so he talks about the tax cuts and how much the tax reduction is. Some of the money that he's talking about being a massive tax reduction is against what would have happened if the tax rates would have gone back to where they were in 2017. And so that'll be the savings. And so there's a bit of a danger in doing that because people are hearing that they're going to get this massive tax reduction, but you're actually telling them that it's a reduction compared to what would have happened if you would not have extended the tax cuts. And that could potentially be a harm for you because people are like, where's this extra money? I thought I was getting a super big decrease in my taxes. Now, there is the no tax on tips thing up to a certain amount. There's the no tax on overtime thing up to a certain amount. And there's the no tax on Social Security, which is actually a tax refund at the end of the year. You will still be getting taxes taken out of your Social Security check because they need to borrow that money from you throughout the year. And so that's the case with all of those things. They need to use your money throughout the year instead of letting you use your money throughout the year.
Standing up to the special interest to dramatically reduce the price of prescription drugs. I negotiated directly with the drug companies and foreign nations which were taking advantage of our country for many decades to slash prices on drugs and pharmaceuticals by as much as 400, 500, and even 600%. In other words, your drug costs will be plummeting downward. And I used the threat of tariffs to get foreign countries who would never have done it to pay the cost of this giant dollar reduction. There has never been anything like this in the history of our country. Drugs have...
There's never been anything like that in the history of math because he's still doing this. We're going to reduce the prices by 4, 5, 600%. I think I saw it explained by someone how he was getting to this number. And then I just forgot about it because it didn't really make sense. And now I'm trying to remember again how it is they're saying they're going to reduce prices by 600% on things. Now I can't think of a way that they're saying that. So you can, if you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment of how they're saying that. There's got to be some kind of explanation because they keep doing it, and math does not math on that. That's just you'd be paying people to take the drug. So if you're going to reduce something by 500% and it costs $100, you're going to pay someone, what is it, $500 to $400 to take the drug. So I don't know where they get to that number. He has been doing a lot of negotiations on drug prices, specific individual drugs, making deals with some of the companies. There's not a whole lot structurally changing with healthcare right now. It's relying on people making deals with Trump, and I'm not going to fault him for trying to go out and make deals with these companies. I'm not critiquing him for doing that, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done in healthcare. We know about that. I don't have time to talk about that during this.
Only gone up, but now they'll be going down by numbers never conceived possible. I'm also taking on the gigantic health insurance companies that have gotten rich on billions of dollars of money that should go directly to the people. The money should go to the people. That's you. So they can buy their own health insurance, which will give far better benefits at much lower cost. It will be far better health insurance. The current Unaffordable Care Act was created to make insurance companies rich. It was bad health care at much too high a cost. And you see that now in the steep increase in premiums being demanded by the Democrats, and they are demanding those increases, and it's their fault. It is not the Republicans' fault. It's the Democrats' fault. It's the Unaffordable Care Act, and everybody knew it.
Don't worry, we've got less than 4 minutes of this speech left to go. We're almost there. The House did pass a piece of healthcare legislation yesterday. I haven't read anything about what its chances are in the Senate. It did not extend the expanded, enhanced ACA tax credits or anything like that. But it did do like a couple good things. I did see Thomas Massey voted against it too, and I get it. I do wonder. It might be one of the times I sort of disagree with him on something because we're against incremental steps in the wrong direction. And most of the time we get incremental steps in the wrong direction. And that I have not read this entire bill yet. So don't take this to the bank or anything. What I've read so far about this bill is it seems like a tiny incremental step in the right direction. And so that, I feel like if you're against incremental steps in the wrong direction, you could take incremental steps in the right direction. He was upset because it keeps the Obamacare mandates in effect for health insurance coverage, things like that. But it does open up people to create their own risk pools, their own association health plans. And I think that's a good thing for sure. It also mandates that they look into pharmacy benefit managers, and they got to, over the course of 2 years, they're going to figure out how these PBMs are screwing over people. And I think they are screwing over people. So that's one of the parts there. Now, he talks about putting money in people's health savings accounts instead of the money going directly to the insurance companies. One of the problems with that is if you do nothing to legalize cheaper insurance, if you don't release any free market activity inside of that marketplace, then all that's going to happen is you were giving $7,000 directly to an insurance company to subsidize someone's plan. Instead, you're going to give that to the person, and that person is going to have to give the insurance company $7,000. If nothing changes structurally with legalizing cheaper health insurance, then nothing really changes there. There's only one potential benefit with people spending that money that's in those accounts, and that's that there are other things they can spend that money on, even though it's in a health savings account, meaning that money does have to compete for other uses. And they will inherently want to not spend that entire amount on that insurance plan. They might think, well, I want to spend some of this on out-of-pocket drug costs, or I want to use this to buy cough drops at CVS or something like that. There's a lot of stuff you can put on HSAs. And so there are other uses for that money, not just the insurance plan. And so naturally people will want to find ways to spend less of that so they can spend some of it on other things. So there's a little bit of downward pricing pressure inside of giving the money to people to spend versus just giving it directly to the companies. There's a little bit.
Another major focus is the cost of energy. For years, the radical left Democrats exploited the green energy scam as an excuse to funnel many billions of dollars into their own massive slush funds as their energy restrictions drastically drove up prices, and they drove them up at record levels. Electricity costs surged 30 to 100% under Biden. On day one, I declared a national energy emergency. Gasoline is now under $2.50 a gallon in much of the country. In some states, it, by the way, just hit $1.99 a gallon. And within the next 12 months, we will have opened 1,600 new electrical generating plants, a record, and it's a record that won't be beaten by practically, I would say, by anybody.
Because it's, from what I can find, it's not a record. The only data I can find right now is that there's actually about 700 electrical generating plants, or whatever you call them, power generating plants of some sort that would come online within the next year. That's according to the EIA, somewhere around 700. So it's not 1,600. There could be some other plans or people talking about it, and he's just wrapping all that into one. Whatever. Electricity prices are still up this year, and they're projected to be up next year also, because our demand for power is going up so much, and natural gas prices, I think, are projected to go back up, I'm pretty sure. And so we're still looking at electricity prices going up, and not going to be a lot of people about what their bills are at all. What was the last thing he said? I'm just going to let it keep playing.
Or certainly not very soon. Prices on electricity and everything else will fall dramatically. The Democrat inflation disaster, again, the worst in the history of our country, also robbed millions of Americans of home ownership and indeed the American dream. The yearly cost of a typical new mortgage increased by $15,000 under Democrat rule. In 11 months, we've already gotten that annual cost down by $3,000, and it's coming down a lot lower. Wait till you see. The numbers are going to be shocking.
So the numbers he's talking about there, the increases in the yearly mortgage, that has to do predominantly with interest rates going up so much and home prices going up also at the same time. And the reason they've actually come down technically for people right now is because the interest rates have been coming down a bit. So that's the, actual home prices are not really falling. They do seem to be a little stagnant or potentially down a bit. I haven't looked. Like, I know in my area they seem to be coming down just a little bit, at least according to the, those offers that people put in your mailbox. Like, here's how much we'll buy your house for today. I saw them going up a bunch over the last few years, and then the last couple I got, it's gone down a bit. Or maybe they just heard about the news, what happened with my neighbor, and so they sent me a new comp. I don't know. The other thing with the gas prices beforehand, that's what I forgot about. Whatever. It's ticky-tack stuff. He mentions the $1.99 gas. I think Gas Buddy was able to identify like 10 gas stations or so in between like 4 states that had gas at $1.99, somewhere in there. And so that's, okay, is that the gas prices thing? Yeah, let me see here. I'll look at that later. So the average prices in those states are not below 2, but whatever. Gas prices are down in my area for sure, and I'm happy about that. Oil prices are down, I think like 58. Pretty low right now. So it's generally when wars happen.
Soon announce our next chairman of the Federal Reserve, someone who believes in lower interest rates by a lot, and mortgage payments will be coming down even further early the new year.
All right, last time I'll break, and then we'll play the whole rest of the thing afterwards. This is not a good thing. I get that mortgage prices have been affected by the interest rates and all that. I understand that, but of course the government wants rates to be lower so they can continue their crazy deficit spending and they can keep financing their massive deficits and the debt. They want the cheap money. That is exactly what they want. They want that cheap money, and they can get that with some cheap bonds, and they can use that, and it's going to cause a bunch of inflation. It's not a good thing. That's how we finance all the terrible things that the government does. And by the way, with all this talk about all the great things that have happened, the government is still spending $7 trillion. Way too much. We've not reduced the amount of money the government is spending. Even stuff that we did find, we have just shifted it around like, oh, that was wasteful. It's not, we're going to stop spending that money. We're going to find something not wasteful to spend that money on. They codified $9 billion of the Doge cuts. And then some of those they put back on in the next bill they signed. So it's, that's still a big thing that needs to happen. I think the plan right now is to grow our way out of this. That definitely seems to be the plan. We're going to grow the GDP, grow our way out of this. And hey, if they want to freeze the spending at $7 trillion or 7.1 trillion, okay, let's freeze it. Let's freeze it that way for 5 years and see what happens. Let's see what happens. That'd be great.
Here, and you will see this in the new year. I will announce some of the most aggressive housing reform plans in American history. A major factor in driving up housing costs was the colossal border invasion. Over 60% of growth in the rental market came from foreign migrants. In the year before my election, all net creation of jobs was going to foreign migrants. Since I took office, 100% of all net job creation has gone to American-born citizens. 100%. Before my election, the vast majority of good and decent Americans were forced to watch as corrupt politicians plundered the halls of power, exploited our taxpayers, and pillaged every system that makes civilized society function. But not anymore, and you see that every day, not anymore. We're putting America first, and we are making America great again. Very simple. We are making America great again. Tonight, after 11 months, our border is secure. Inflation is stopped. Wages are up. Prices are down. Our nation is strong. America is respected. And our country is back, stronger than ever before. We're poised for an economic boom, the likes of which the world has never seen. Soon we will host the World Cup and the Olympics, both of which I got. But most importantly, we will celebrate the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. There could be no more fitting tribute to this epic milestone than to complete the comeback of America that began just 1 year ago. When the world looks at us next year, let them see a nation that is loyal to its citizens, faithful to its workers, confident to its identity, certain to its destiny, and the envy of the entire globe. We are respected again like we have never been respected before. To each and every one of you, have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. God bless you all.
All right, sorry, just wanted to let that play so we could be done with the speech. Yeah, a few things there in the closing. I wanted to get the whole closing statement. As we mentioned earlier, he goes through again, inflation has stopped and prices are down, and that's not true. So inflation has not stopped. Number just came out today, 2.7% CPI, and that's, as I discussed earlier in this as well, that's the fake number. But that's the fake number we use. That's the fake number we know. So we know that that's at 2.7% right now. That's year over year. So that still encompasses a time that Trump was not in office, but there's still been month over month inflation occurring as well. So inflation has not stopped. It's lower than the inflation that we were dealing with in 2022 and 2023. Prices are not down because the prices on some things are down. And depending on what month you pull from, like when he says grocery prices are a problem, and then he says eggs are down 85% since March, he's talking about, of course, that massive spike we had in egg prices. And so he points that out. Those kind of things annoy me when a different president does it. And so they annoy me when anyone does it, because that's really just using stats to manipulate and make your case. And that's just, I don't know, you can lie with stats anytime you want. Depends on where you pull. Everyone does it. And not a fan. So yeah, when they cold all the chickens, Jake, I'm just looking through here. And then yes, the last thing I'll mention, he talks about the 250th anniversary of America and release of the Declaration of Independence. So invoking the founding fathers so much in 1776 so much. Dang. Did I mention we're spending $7 trillion? We got a Fed printing money like crazy, borrowing money like crazy, running massive deficits, stealing trillions of dollars from the people under threat of imprisonment. The wars that we're still fighting in the Middle East and that we're trying to fight in the Caribbean, the civil liberties, privacy, all sorts of stuff. Hey, I love invoking the founding fathers. That'd be great. And if they want to keep pushing us, if they want to push us towards that direction, I'm totally in favor of it. But as many people who are listening to this know, and I want Republicans to know, that if the founding fathers came back here today, they would do awful, awful things to all of you, not just Democrats. What Republicans support today, it was like worse than the stuff that they fought the war against. So you're not any better. They'd take this whole thing down. So if they had the means, you guys get what I'm saying. So yeah, I get especially annoyed when people invoke the founding fathers and then we just talk about a lot of really terrible things that the government's still doing. So hey, sure, if we want to talk about them and their principles and the Constitution, that's great. Let's move towards that. It's been 11 months of Trump being the president or so, something like that. Some good things, some bad things. I've agreed with a lot of stuff. I disagree with a lot of stuff. And I still want to reserve a lot of my judgment for how this is all going to go, because we're still less than a year in. And we've made the case so many times in the past that economic changes that you're trying to make, they take a long time to show up in the economy. So if he's going to announce some major housing reforms at the beginning of the year, that'd be great. from stuff I've read, they have talked about getting rid of a lot of regulations, and that would be great. They have gotten rid of a lot of EPA regulations. The Department of Education, sort of, they could still pop back up anytime someone wants it to, but sort of got rid of that one. Like, there's been some good things they've done, and it's going to take a while for those things to actually filter into society. And you just got to make sure that in the meantime, you're not doing anything to make it worse. And so I think that's what they need to do better. You might be doing some good things to fix some situations. Let's just make sure we're not doing stuff to make it worse. All right, everyone. I got to go. Thank you for hanging out with me today. That was fun. Leave a rating and review on your favorite podcast app. Leave a comment on YouTube. I think you can comment on Spotify too. I never get on there and look at them, but you can, I think you can do something on, I don't know. I don't use Spotify. Rating and review for sure. And then, what else? Hang out with us on X, Good AM Liberty. Comment on there. That's where I spend most of my time when dealing with the podcast. Most of it's on X. So at Good AM Liberty, comment on our stuff, share our stuff, tell the algorithms that people want to see our stuff. That would be awesome. And come join the Fed Haters Club. Join gml.com. If you do all those things, and I mean all of them, then I'm going to be back here again tomorrow for what is sure to be a crazy, jam-packed Dumb Bleep of the Week. And if you've never listened to Dumb Bleep of the Week, then you want to be here tomorrow to do that. And if you want to vote for the dumbest thing, it's almost time for Dumb Bleep of the Year. It's coming up quick. If you want to vote, go to joingml.com. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. See you tomorrow. Until then, have a good day and a good morning, Liberty.